A sustained dip in the global price of key Nigerian crude oil grades is triggering significant concerns about the nation's ability to fund its 2024 budget, according to economic analysts and government officials. The federal government's financial plan now, or the year, is predicated on a conservative oil benchmark of $77.96 per barrel and a production of output of 1.78 million barrels per day. However, for several weeks and as of today, 10th of September, the premium grades of Bonny Light and Brass River has been trading below the critical threshold of $68 per barrel, nearly $10 below the budget assumption. This price slump is attributed to a combination of global factors, including weakening demand from key importers like China, a stronger US dollar, and an overall atmosphere of economic uncertainty, suppressing market sentiments. Furthermore, reports of modestly increased production from non-OPEC countries have contributed to global supply outpacing demand. My guest is Mr. Joseph Nwakwe. He's the former chairman of the Nigerian Council of Society of Petroleum Engineers, and at the moment, he is the partner with Zara Advisory and Consulting. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nwakwe. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the program. It's good to have you in.
Good afternoon, Tolu. How are you today?
Very well, thank you so much. I am worried. I don't know if you are worried, considering the flip-flop with the price of crude and what we've seen. How does it come to you? What does it make? What does it mean for our budgetary process?
Well, oil price volatility is not a new thing. That's the nature of the industry, and that's why countries that depend on natural resources generally are encouraged to.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. I beg your pardon before you continue. We have some live pictures also coming in. We'll be having on our platform Zamfara State flagging of action on business enabling reforms. There's a live pictures from Zamfara State there where that event will be on. Business Nigeria continues on all our other platforms as our conversation continues with Mr. Joseph Nwakwe. Thank you.
Thank you.
So go ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay, so basically what I'm trying to say is that every nation that depends on natural resources export should expect this. So this is not good for our economy in the near term, but in the long term, if we respond well, diversify sufficiently, then that will be fine. Currently, we are trading at 67 for the I think it's way below the $77 benchmark that was set. So that's a significant deficit in revenue that could equally mean that to be able to fund the budget, we may have to do additional borrowing. So it has implications for all of us. But I think I hope it does not sustain for a very long time. So remember that those numbers are year-long averages. So it's quite possible that at the end of the day, it might not disrupt the implementation of the budget if we consider the whole year. But it is what it is. It's the nature of the terrain.
Considering that Nigeria is also, I think there's a bit of stability and improved production capacity for us. Does that also mean well? Because if we are producing more, even if price drops, we might still get more revenue.
Fair enough. I mean, our budget was based on 1.78, something like that. Yeah. That's a year average. My sense is that we will not be able to meet that target. I mean, we only have 3 months left in the year. And remember, we've struggled to come up to about 1.8 now. And for a significant portion of the year, we were below 1.6. So catching up is going to be tough. So in a sense, yes, if we could do it, if we could produce maybe from now 2 million barrel a day from now to the end of the year, yeah, maybe you might be able to claw back most of that. But I really doubt that.
Well, that's on one side. Let's also look at challenges, of course, around our PIA. Again, every time I have you in, I always like to bring it to the fore. I think it's 4 years after now. We're almost getting to 5 years now. Is it not 4 years plus of having the PIA? I've had analysts on my show, and they've told me that Nigeria kind of has a selective implementation of that document. I don't know what you think, but what do you make of the implementation?
One word: shoddy. Well, it's. I mean, I've said this severally in this on this show that the intent of the law. I don't think we've implemented up to 50% of what is expected, what the law says, and that impacts outcomes. So it hasn't been implemented as it should.
What would we have done better? Because some would say interest is also here. The issue of interest, protecting interest, is also here.
Well, interest, I don't know that anybody's personal interest trumps national interest. So if Nigeria gets together to write a piece of legislation that is intended to unlock value from a sector, and somebody prioritizes his personal interest over and above that of 200 million of us, I don't think that person deserves to lead. So I mean, this is a general comment on my side. I think that we need to look at what are we trying to accomplish? What was the law intended to do? And there has been some progress in some areas, but by and large, like you said, this is since August 2021, and we're in September 2025. That's 4 years ago. One would have expected that we would have moved faster with some of the key elements of the law. I don't think we've done well enough.
The ongoing rally that we see also regards to Israel-Iran war, many say also portends risks and upsides for the oil market. I don't know how that also comes to you.
Well, whenever you have those geopolitical tension, it impacts the market in very many ways, whether it's shipping channels being disrupted or demand being destroyed. You can imagine what's happening in Iran, Gaza, and all that. There will be very minimal demand, and that rolls up into significant demand reductions. And once that happens, especially in this era of what I may call oversupply, prices will take a hit. So that's what we're seeing. That might still stay on since the war is still on, the back and forth. What about Donald Trump and his tariff issue? Some will talk about the fact that one way or the other we still export crude to the United States. So if Trump goes ahead or is already going ahead with his new tariffs, do you think that would also impact price of crude one way or the other? And the fact that he's talked about the drill, baby drill, I don't know how far what they're doing with their shale oil. Any updates with regards to that? Yeah, I mean, I understand they've licensed some areas that hitherto weren't open to exploration. But it takes time. I mean, there's a gestation period. So even if you gave those acreages out now, it's 4 or 5 years before you can get any volumes out of it. So, but tariffs, very important issue. So if you if you notice, since this tariff war started, all the major institutions have forecasted lower than normal growth rates for the global economy. So that's something. I think the World Bank was carrying something like 2.1%. IMF is at 3.1 or something. So 2.3, the World Bank. So so that creates a lot of anxiety in the global economy, uncertainty. So the tariff wars are disruptive of the recoveries that we have, the post-COVID recoveries. I think this has plunged us back further down the road. I think it kind of slowed down that recovery. So it has implications for demand, and by implication, it impacts on prices as well. So that's why we're seeing these reductions in trading prices.
Let's talk about refining now, which many will say Nigeria now plays a key role across the space now with, of course, with the coming on board of Dangote Refinery. Many say that there's been a shift in the refining process or the refining market. Let me use that word if I'm allowed to. Do you see us making that impact? Talking about the capacity of Mr. Dangote's refinery. We already here is in exporting finished products outside the country. Are we making an impact in that market?
Certainly, the Dangote Refinery has kind of tried to, is still a work in progress, but it's essentially redrawing the map, the supply and demand map for especially products, diesel, aviation fuel, and PMS. So and I think it's still going to make a lot more changes to the trading dynamics that we see. I think he's making a lot of foray into the African countries. So trade flows are going to change. No question about that. So it's good news for Nigeria. It's a good day for us to see that one man's vision can indeed create such a huge, massive impact on the country. And I hope that this will eventually lead to Nigeria being a global refining hub. I think that's where this should ultimately end. So I think that's one of the greatest things that has happened lately. Imagine for a second what would have happened if there was no Dangote and we did the deregulation. It would have been. I think the outcome would have been very different. So Dangote saved us from that bullet.
So that means if that had happened, let's paint a picture of what would have happened if there was no Dangote Refinery with deregulated downstream.
Yeah, so we would have we will be doing 100%
importation. Right?
And I do not think that the exchange rate will be where it is today. Maybe it will be 2,000 or 3,000.
So that stability would have not been there, right?
Yeah, so we wouldn't have been able to stabilize the exchange rate. I mean, it's obvious that he indeed, the prices would have been such that we would have seen a significant reduction in demand. Because if all the 100% of the products are imported and pricing has to depend on the vagaries of exchange rates, you can imagine what that would be doing to the prices at the pump. So I think we got lucky.
But Dangote is still importing crude largely, and that is one thing that also worries me. Some analysts have argued on my show and say, yeah, he's supposed to have made plans for how he will get crude for such a large refinery. Some say, no, government needs to make provision. Some say, yeah, and we need to now start to... You are an expert in this field. What would have been the right way to go? Because at the moment, he still continues to import.
I don't think the argument is whether he will import or not. I think remember, he has a high complexity index refinery, and your gross refining margin is the difference between what you put in, the value, input, and what you sell, the output. So he's in the business of maximizing that margin. So if that requires that he imports some low value crude and turns into high value products so that margins can be maximized, that's what he will do. I think the conversations we've had about whether or not he uses Nigerian crude or not, I think they are not. They for that scale of a refinery, and we've seen the one in India, the Jamnagar, they import 100%. Everybody, so it's not strange. Now, the issue will be we have a domestic crude supply obligation regime. How do we get that to work? Maybe for me, probably not for a Dangote. How do we get it to work for the small 10,000 barrel refinery? Those ones cannot really, their business model cannot support importing crude, right? So that's the group that I'm really, really worried about. They need to get assured feedstock. Now, if Nigeria has enough volume of well-priced crude to give Dangote, so be it. Great. My sense is that we're not there yet. My sense is that a lot of the volumes have been committed. And so that's what's making this thing a bit difficult and controversial. And I hope with time, as they ramp up production numbers, that they'll be able to meet him at some point. He doesn't have to import 100%. And I imagine that some blending, he has to do some blending. So it would be nice for him to get a significant portion of his feedstock from Nigeria, while bringing in maybe some, WTI and all that to kind of blend that and minimize his input cost. So I think that it's not something we need to. I think it will bother me really for the small refinery, the 5,000, the 10,000. Those guys need to have guaranteed feedstock, and the domestic crude supply obligation regime should be implemented to ensure that happens.
Now, when we talk about refining license and all of that, I've also had some arguments in some quarters with regards to lifting of petroleum products, which is the issue now at the downstream of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. We know what just happened last week between Nupeng and all of that, just resolved a few days ago. So, and the argument in some quarters is that Dangote Refinery doesn't have the license to distribute. We've seen a series of arguments everywhere. Mine really is to ask the question, what really is the true position when it has to do with distribution of petroleum products? The fact that Dangote is refining in large quantity, does he also have the capacity to distribute and even saying free FOC at no cost? That's what he says. And some people have already invested in this business. What happens to them? I don't know how that comes to you or your understanding of this. I'm just asking the questions.
Well, you're doing your job, I think. So we have to look at this issue. I didn't pay a lot of attention to all of that, but I can say a few things. The PIA does not explicitly prohibit vertical integration. So what Dangote is trying to do is to vertically integrate, refine, and distribute. There's no restriction. However, the regulatory regime is such that it requires different licenses for those operations. So your refining license does not permit you to truck. So you need, distribution has to have a different license. My sense is that, the law can't say everything. So the regulator has to make regulations that covers the field. If there are things that the law did not explicitly specify, they can be done via regulation. That's why we have that. So I expect that there are some issues around this that we need to be aware of. Like you said, there were people in this business before who will potentially be displaced if things go without some regulation. I think things need to be regulated. One issue is you talked about the distribution for free, right? So it means that will be underwritten by the refinery. So the question people are asking will be, if Dangote were to have that, right, how can those other people compete? Because remember that Dangote is in a tax-free zone, right? It's an export-free zone, so it's not paying taxes. So how can the man who is in Apapa, who is into the distribution business and who pays tax, how is he going to be able to compete with Dangote, who doesn't have a refinery? So those are the challenges, and I think the regulator has to take a view and look at those issues and come up with regulations on how those will be done. I think those are concerns. Those are legitimate concerns. It will be very difficult to displace that number of trucking, people, tank farm owners. There's a whole ecosystem that employs maybe 300,000 people that could be at risk. So I think the regulator needs to take a closer look at some of the things that are happening in that space and strengthen them out. I like the efficiencies that Dangote getting into distribution will bring, right? Remember, at all times, our policy should be about making sure that the end user, the man who buys at the pump, gets products when he needs it at the right price, at a price that is sustainable as well, which guarantees that people who are doing business will remain in business and he can continue to do his own business with Petrol. So if we think about the end user, oh, that's great. What Dangote is doing is great. It's going to reduce, because baked into the pump price is the cost of all this transportation, inefficient, I may say. It's baked in there. So if somebody comes to shake that tree, I'm glad, I'm happy. But I would wish that the regulator would take steps to make sure that the outcomes will be positive for everyone involved.
I think I like that way, that regulators really need to play a role. Now, but before we wrap this up, interesting conversation, I must say today. Despite the fact that a lot is being done in that refinery production and all of that, we still import PMS into the country. I really want to understand why that is still happening.
Well, again, I don't import petrol, so
I know you don't.
But I will tell you this. Remember, like I said, Dangote just started, so there were people who have businesses based on the marine petroleum business. So there's been infrastructure built over time, right? There are people, that's what they know how to do, import stuff and sell. So you don't just wake up and they're on the streets overnight, right? So that's one. The other bit is trade practices. I think we need to look at what are Dangote's trade practices. Some of these guys, especially the small ones, they trade on credit. Is Dangote granting them that? So we have to think about terms of trade issues. And I believe, speaking to a few of my people I know who are in the business, I think they've had some challenges with that. Dangote is, he's doing his thing the way he thinks it should be done. You can't quarrel with that. So those guys, if they can't meet his terms, they have to go elsewhere. They have to get products to be in business, right? So they will go to Lome or someplace and buy stuff and bring it. And if they get credit terms, great. So there are a few things around terms of trade beyond the issue that people have been there and they are used to doing things in specific ways. So those are some of the things I think that has, and then of course the regulator, from the last numbers I saw, essentially believes that he does not produce enough to serve the entire market. So that means that there has to be some augmentation. And given that the NNPC refineries are shut down, import is the only other way to fill that gap. So that's what I think is going on there. Dangote claims he's got enough capacity to keep the country wet. But who do I believe? The regulator is the person that we have asked to do that job. So we need to take what they've said.
Now, back to the PIA before we wrap this up. Just yesterday, former Minister Ebeka Chukwu said that political interference with the NNPC, NUPRC, NMDPRA would make them underperform. And you were just talking about implementation. You already talked about it. You used the word shabby in your first submission regards to the implementation of the PIA. So if we are looking at what this former minister has also said, what would you make of all of it?
I mean, he spoke from experience. He's been there. He understands what the issues are, right? So, there's nothing for me to say there. Than he has basically told us one of the key issues. Today, the president is the Minister of Petroleum, right? I don't know what else we need to know that. I mean, you have to ask yourself that question. If the president is the Minister of Petroleum, that's it. Politics and everything is meshed together, right? So interference comes in several forms, several ways. So I think Dr. Kachukwu knew what he was saying, and I think the earlier we minimize it, I don't think you will ever completely, when we're doing the PIA, there was a lot of effort trying to insulate the industry from political pressure. I can tell you that for fact. It's obvious today that it ain't gonna work. So what you can do is build guardrails that will minimize interference.
So finally,
and I'm hoping that
go ahead, make your point.
Yeah, I said I'm hoping that that's what leaders will do.
All right.
Try and insulate.
All right, finally, what's your outlook for the entire sector regards to crude oil prices, regards to Nigeria's projection, assumptions regards to internal production and all of that, and also prices, like I said earlier, geopolitical issues all put together. What do you make of the crude oil market moving forward?
Okay, I think the supply situation will continue to look. I mean, OPEC is going to increase output by 137,000 barrels next month, and so supply continues to be robust. Brazil, Guyana, they are all pumping, right? So what we can hope for is that demand can equally pick up. So the idea will not be to cut supply. I'm not hoping there will be geopolitical crisis that will cut supply. I'm hoping that all of this geopolitical tension, tariffs, and all that will just slow down a bit and allow the global economy to recover and then consume more oil, and prices can go up. So that's my personal wish. For Nigeria, I think the optics are good. Volumes are gradually coming back. The new leadership in NNPC, I think they're doing their bit. They seem to be focused on getting those numbers to where they should be, and they need to be encouraged to do that. So if we can get volumes back, restiveness, kind of calm down a little bit, and then of course investments will follow. Investments will come, and right now every day there's a lot of activity in the industry. So yeah. It tells me that the volumes will come in short order. And it tells me that if we can get, maybe next 2 years, we should be able to be looking at 2 point something million barrels a day. and the pressure on the naira will reduce. that's our prayer, right? And we can because I mean, oil in the ground is meaningless to any of us. Right? If it's in the ground, it's so somebody has to bring it. It only has value when it's produced. So that's what I hope will happen, and the industry will come back, will get back on its feet, and the country will benefit. And then all the refineries and petrochemical plants will spring up.
All right.
Can produce enough gas for our power companies as well, so that darkness will go away. That's my prayer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Nwakwe. Interesting conversation today. Partner Zara Advisory and Consulting, also former chairman of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Nigerian chapter. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great day, too.
All right, then. All right, then.